Hello, everyone. Welcome to this webinar that's focused on the fundamentals of starting an F&B business. We're going to give it a minute or two for everybody to stream in. So get your coffee, get your late lunch, or whatever you're working on. And I would mention just briefly, we have a couple of polls that are going to pop up. Please take a minute to fill out the poll. We want to know who you are. You're going to, in a minute or two, you're going to know who our great panel is and our moderator. But we want to know who you are. So definitely take a minute to fill out the poll that's going to pop up, one at the beginning and then one at the end. And then also we would encourage you in the chat. We want this to be interactive. We want this to be fun. So basically put in the chat who you are, what's your name, what's your business. If you're looking to start a business, what's your industry. So we want to see that chat lighting up. And then also in the Q&A, if you have any questions for our moderator or our panelists, please put the question in the Q&A so we can answer it at the end. But definitely don't be shy. We don't have a shy group of panelists and moderators, so definitely don't be shy on your end. And so we'll just give it another minute or two while folks are streaming in. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. I know we're gonna have some more folks streaming in, but we want to welcome you to this webinar that's focused on the fundamentals of starting a F&B business. We want to give you really great resources, really great experiences from seasoned entrepreneurs and also experts. And so we'll go ahead and get started. But my name is Brian Van Hook, and I am the Regional Director of the Florida Small Business Development Center at FIU. I have like the really cool job to help you start and grow your businesses. And I don't do that myself. I don't have a cape on my back. We have a really good team of consultants that do that. We have 27 business specialists. Adriana, that you're going to hear from today on the panel, is one of our really great business specialists that can help you on that. But if you're in Miami-Dade County or if you're in the Florida Keys, there's a lot of F&B businesses in those two counties. Definitely we can help you out. If you're from around the state and you're really sad because you don't get to work with me or Adriana, don't worry, there is an SBDC near you that they have local consultants that can help you out. And then I want to turn it over to Anna, my colleague from Food FIU, and I just want to thank them for partnering with us on this workshop series, this webinar series, because they're always really great partners to us, like pre-COVID, during COVID, and we had this really great idea to partner up on some webinars. So I just want to thank her and her team for helping us to organize that. So I'll turn it over to Anna to make some remarks as well.
Awesome. Hey guys, it is the middle of the week and we are excited to provide you support post-COVID. As Brian stated, we here at FIU, we collaborate all the time to cultivate opportunities to support small businesses. And for those of you that are interested or that have created a product during the pandemic and you're looking for ways to really transition from an idea to your start, today's the day to ask the questions. We have a phenomenal panel with a plethora of experience. For those of you that are here, you know, we're excited to taste your food products. We're excited to see what you are creating. But there are all these other elements that comes with you cultivating a successful company. And, you know, the panel is going to address certain best practices. They're going to share their experiences with you. But as Brian stated, we really encourage you to not be afraid and ask questions. There is no question that we've not heard. And so don't think that it's not an important question. It really is, especially when it comes to your own personal finances and your own ability to really go after your dreams. And so this is your shot. So as Brian stated, SBDC has a phenomenal team of consultants that will provide you with one-on-one assistance, right? So you're gonna have your opportunity to listen in, and then you guys are gonna be in a position to log on to SBDC and schedule your own personal time with someone where you can take this conversation to the next level. For us here at StartUP, we like to support you when it comes to that actual product. So from our incubator program to our online activities, we want to see that concept on the shelves in stores. We want to help you figure out a way to scale it. And so between Brian and myself, we're always working together, literally. And we've been able to get to know these phenomenal panelists. Specifically, I'm going to introduce your moderator who is a phenomenal chef, who owns her own commercial kitchen space in Broward County, and who I can personally say has an amazing experience with helping small businesses transition from a shared commercial kitchen space to their own commercial space. And so I'm going to suggest you hound her, okay? You hound Chef Vicky for questions regarding, your product, the legalities of transitioning from your home to a space such as hers. And you move forward with hounding the panelists because we have experts in finance and organizational structure and marketing, and F&B, the logistics of that. And so I strongly suggest you write down their names and you take advantage of that Q&A session. So without further ado, Chef Vicky, I'm going to sit back and take out my notebook and join the crowd.
Oh boy, lots of pressure. Hi everyone. Like Anna did a wonderful job. My name is Vicky. Of course, I go by Chef Vicky. That has become my new name. I've been a chef over 16 plus years, and I'm a graduate of FIU twice, both my bachelor's and my master's in dietetics and nutrition. And when I finished that, I decided I was looking for a kitchen to start and couldn't find one. So since I'm someone who likes to solve problems, I decided to figure out how to create that solution for not just me, but for others. So from there in 2015, 2016, we built a 7,400 square foot facility, and we've seen hundreds of small business entrepreneurs. Ask me any questions you want, because I know all the policies and procedures when it comes to food business, whether it's a product, a certified product, anything, catering, food trucks, anything that has to do with the food industry, we can guide you and show you how exactly you need at policy level and how to transition from your house to a commercial kitchen, then to your own brick and mortar. It's just that way. So I'm very excited to be with everyone today, because everybody here on the panel, I had a chance to chit chat with everyone. And we have, like Anna said, a plethora of information to give. So I will go around and ask everybody to quickly introduce themselves so we could get that out of the way.
I'll go first.
Paul, go ahead. Paul, go ahead.
My name is Paul Van Hammond. I have a company here called The Drinks Company, which is a beverage distribution company here in Miami. We cover from south of Miami to West Palm Beach. We have about 700 clients, predominantly hotels and cruise lines. But we also fulfill the needs of the food industry in general, restaurants, cafes, and down to things like yoga studios and gymnasiums. We currently distribute a range of about 22 beverages, which are fairly well-known brands. But in that whole portfolio are two brands that I own. One is called Express Juice, which I started 7 years ago. It's a range of cold pressed juices that are made in our facility here in Miami. Everything from the bottle is made locally, labels, and the majority of the produce is sourced locally. It's all cold pressed, no additives, sugars, waters, and flavors. And then about 6 months pre-COVID, we launched a second brand called Mixology Maker. And I was lucky enough to have some support within Bacardi for this brand. And that's a range of 32-ounce cold pressed juice mixes for the cocktail industry, which kicked off at the right time for home-based cocktail hours. So, so I have my business. We talk about having three heads. We have two CPG brands and a distribution company that encompasses the whole lot. And my accent's not local. I'm not Cuban. So in case you were wondering that, I'm actually from Australia. I came here just over 8 years ago. I am a chef by trade. I did my training in Melbourne, London, and Monaco. Owned 5 restaurants in Australia, and yeah, here I am.
Still
Chef
on
Vicky,
me.
I think,
You moved it. What is going on? So sorry. Technology. Tasha, thank you, Paul, for your introduction. Tasha, you want to take it over?
Yes, absolutely. My name is Tasha Cunningham. I am a managing partner at the Brand Advocates. We are a full service integrated advertising agency. And I have been working with StartUP FIU for a very long time, helping entrepreneurs. I do the same with the SBDC and others. So we try to impart the knowledge that we have in marketing and advertising to help food and beverage businesses, especially post-pandemic. So I'm really happy to be here today and be part of the panel and take questions.
Thank you, Tasha. Now I have Joyce Morris. Would you like to take that over? Thank you.
Sure, thank you. So I'm Joyce Morris, as Chef Vicky mentioned. I'm currently the finance assistant, graduate assistant at StartUP Food. So I've been with StartUP FIU Food for the past 3 years. And so I help the entrepreneurs, you know, with their finances, with understanding their financial stuff, whether it's from the finance lab that we have to sitting down with them, helping them understand their bookkeeping, managing their financials, so on and so forth. My background, a little bit of background about me. Obviously, I'm a graduate student at FIU, so I'm currently getting my doctorate. And so I have a background where I worked several years in wealth management and worked on Wall Street. So my background's in finance. I've done a lot of work, both mainly volunteer in terms of helping businesses with small businesses and helping them start up, understand their financials, but also some of the basics of things that they need as it relates to growing their business or starting their business. So very excited to be here.
Thank you, Jocelyn. That is, I could tell you that is very important. Although you will focus on one thing, for me, it's cooking. I've had to learn how to read a profit and loss or a balance sheet, which is very important, even if you have people helping you. So now let's go over, thank you so much, Jocelyn. Let's go over to Adriana. Hi, my friend.
Hello, Vicky. Nice to be here with you and all of you. My name is Adriana Madrinan. I work for the SBDC at FIU. As Brian mentioned before, we are about 27 consultants at SBDC at FIU, but there are 1,300 SBDCs in the US. So doesn't matter where you are, you can always get help from the SBDC. At the SBDC, a Small Business Development Center, we offer free consulting services for any small business. We are funded by federal, state, and private money, but for you, it's completely free. In my case specifically, I focus in business models, innovation, and growth. But there are consultants in all the areas, also finance, marketing, HR. So we are here to help you too.
Okay, so I got everybody here. So let's start. Let's have some fun. How is that? The first thing is let's go around and talk about our startup story. I think I gave a little bit of mine. I always refer to me having the kitchen. I'm a serial entrepreneur from day one. I was fed business in the bottle. And I say that because I grew up in Port-au-Prince, Haiti, and my grandparents were distillers. And my uncles owned gas stations, and all I saw day in and day out was my family working for themselves. Of course, coming in the state, I became an entrepreneur myself, but it is not an easy thing, while people think it is, because you have to find a niche market and you have to gravitate towards that. So I've always been someone who likes community, and I love cooking with a passion. I've spent quite a bit of years learning hospitality management and restaurant management at FIU, then went to culinary school, then did dietetics and nutrition as a safer thing for me, being a chef and being a mother of 3. And that has brought me in so many places. But being able to provide a support business for other entrepreneurs while I'm a small business myself is huge. and being able to consult with them and guiding them and making sure that they have the business acumen or foundation they need to progress. And if they listen, they will flourish. So let's go around and talk about our startup stories and see if any of the experiences that we've had building our own can help those who are listening to us at this time. Paul, you want to start?
Yeah, sure. So I had initially come to the United States for a 6-month business project, and that was over 8 years ago. It was actually a different business from what it is now, but still within the food industry. And in a short version of the story, I had moved from Australia with my, at the time, wife and 3 children, and relocated to the United States. And after a few weeks, we noticed that this business wasn't really going to get the legs it needed to get off the ground and get funded and to move. So I had to quickly pivot and reinvent myself. And obviously my background was in restaurants, but I had sort of sworn to my family that I was never going to get back into restaurants again because it's a harsh industry. I'm saying how it is. And I noticed at the time that the juice industry in the United States was, especially the cold pressed juice industry and the raw natural juice sector, was very, it was ripe for the picking, literally. And so I started to develop juices. I had initially used a commissary kitchen here in Miami, and my initial model was to build a franchise model of having these really cool custom-made electric carts, but it quickly turned into supplying hotels. And we had the hotels one after the other sort of came to us. So that was sort of my sort of startup here in Miami and how it sort of grew from there. And it literally has grown organically. But, you know, the blood, sweat and tears has been the fertilizer of that organic growth as well.
And I could understand how difficult it could have been to start too with just the policies to understand what kind of licenses. For example, you needed HACCP. A lot of people, well, it's just juice. Let me just bottle it. Let me just put a cap on it and boom, go.
Yeah, so
it doesn't work that way. So
so our company uses a process called HPP, or high pressure pascalization. And that process is a form of producing juice, extending the shelf life without using heat or preservatives. And at the time, there was only one of those machines here in Florida, and there was only 6 in the United States. These machines are about $3 million a piece. Yep. And so I was lucky enough that the company in Spain that develops and produces these machines, their office was based in Doral. So I quickly made sure they became my best mates. And so I had to step through a whole lot of FDA regulations. We had to do a whole asset plan to meet everything from our cold chain distribution. But on that note, stepping into a foreign land, at the time, I didn't have a social security number. I wasn't entitled to a social security number. So I had to start off from literally raw scratch. I had no friends, no family here, no network here. And it was a classic migrant story. People might think, you're from Australia, you're not a migrant. Well, yeah, I was a migrant like anyone else was. And I had to do the hustle, working in restaurants, and did those hard yards. And I've got some great stories, and I have met some great people. Actually, my business partner, who I met whilst hustling in a restaurant, now is my business partner as well. And yeah, it's an interesting story when you when you have to start a business in a foreign land with no contacts, no idea what the regulations were. I didn't even know what your credit score was. We don't run that thing in Australia. So we start off ground zero. It makes you grow. It makes you really work for it. And learning regulations. I quite often say and get frustrated that if I was in Australia, where I have my core background, my core family, everywhere from tradespeople. It was only yesterday we had a pipe in one of our warehouses burst. if I was in Australia, I would have had someone instantly. Well, here in Miami, I didn't know who to call. I have people, but it's amazing learning curves I've gone through in these years.
So we could say that resources is one of the major things, because again, this is one of the reasons why I think what we do here is awesome, because when you come to me and you have this great juice idea, I'm going to give you the full reality of what it takes. And it might discourage you, but I don't sign up everybody who comes to my facility. Why? Because they need a rude awakening as to what it takes, especially in the product industry. But once you understand that and you have a plan, you're able to move forward, because these regulations, they have to get done and they could run quite costly.
Yeah, look, I've used the SBDC for, I'd say 6 years now. I don't mind dropping names. Niall, who works with you, and some of you know, she has been an absolute godsend to me. Sometimes I'm not sure if our relationship borders on personal or more business. I'm able to pick up the phone for her and, just bounce an idea off her. I do have to keep those conversations quite short sometimes, but she's a godsend in my business. And I really think anyone who's listening to this cast now is, develop a relationship with someone within SBDC who understands what you're trying to do and achieve, and, who you can speak to on an open level. We're not all academics. Well, I'm definitely not. I didn't even finish high school. So, work with someone who you can understand with and get your point across. And like what you said, I think we need to hear a lot more discouragement sometimes in people going into business, because we can't all open up that business and create the same thing. We all need to come up with a point of difference. And I sometimes feel that if businesses hear the more negative stories, that will make us, go back to the table and think a little bit more. What is your point of difference, and what is your route to market here?
And with that, I completely agree, and this is why I tell people, okay, so here's real talk here. I close my door and say, real talk. You're either gonna love it or hate it. Tasha, let's talk about branding.
Yes, so that is one of the key steps in having a small business. You've got to get out there, you've got to market yourself, and that's kind of how I came into working with StartUP FIU Food, is helping some of the businesses that were part of the incubator learn how to market themselves and give them advice on how to do that. And with the pandemic, we saw a lot of these brick and mortar businesses. No one wanted to go to the businesses anymore. So people had to quickly pivot. And if you're a small business or a micro business, you may not have had a website. You probably don't have a digital strategy. You probably weren't taking orders online or anything like that. And so we were working to help these businesses kind of generate this digital presence so that at least they can do the takeout and delivery, pickup, things like that, so that they could try to keep their businesses going. So marketing, especially now, pre-pandemic, it was hard, but I think post-pandemic, it's going to be even harder, because now people are coming back. They still want the digital, they still want to be able to order online and do all these things, but there's a lot that goes behind, creating basically an e-commerce website where you're going to be able to take these orders online. And a lot of people really don't know how to do that, especially if you're a one woman show or a one-man show, and you don't have a lot of people working in your business. You basically have to have someone devoted to just making sure your digital marketing presence is on point. So that's where we come in with, things that you can do to, try to improve your presence and get e-commerce going on your website. There's a lot of issues now with e-commerce websites being sued because they're not ADA accessible. So that's another issue, making sure that people who are disabled can, order from your site and that it's easy. So there's layers upon layers of things to consider when you're trying to create this digital presence. And I like to, when we work with different companies, I like to go through, like you said, how you have this real talk. I like to go through with them. Okay, you're doing this digital presence. You're trying to do all this. It is going to take work on your part. So you're busy running the business. You're doing all these things, but then you have to market yourself. And that's kind of where I see small businesses kind of falling off in the marketing area, because A, they don't understand it, or they don't know exactly how to do it. And so they do the minimum things that they have to do, get a business card, things like that, but they don't really delve into, you know, how can I make this easier for myself, and how can I establish this digital presence? So that's kind of, you know, that's something that I think has to be addressed as well.
Thank you so much, Tasha. That is very important, because marketing is the key, and we cannot be jack of all trades, because we try to do everything in our business, which is known. So let's go over to Adriana. In this moment, prior to COVID or post-COVID, what would you tell a company how to strategize in order to stay relevant, or to kind of pivot a little bit in order to stay afloat?
So it's very interesting. I saw a big change when the pandemic started. So what happened at that time is businesses, the ones that were already maybe online or had a good way to deliver food, could continue the way they were doing, and in fact they continue doing very well. But many of the food businesses had to pivot. So the first pivot that we noticed happen was the food delivery. However, it was difficult because prices were not properly estimated to do delivery. So when you use Uber Eats or Grubhub or all of that, then they eat part of the profit of the company. So it was very important to find a way to do it. Some companies are still having that issue. Some restaurants that they do delivery, but they are not getting any profit out of that when they have delivery. So on that aspect, I fully recommend that you try to sell. Remember, there's only 3 ways to sell more. It's either you increase prices, you sell more to your current clients, or you find new clients. But a good way is to, when the clients come to your place, you also manage that they buy something extra out of you. So then you get more revenue. Or if you are gonna do delivery, if you are locked up with the prices, maybe generate new recipes so you can cost them out properly. That was one way. There were many of the companies that didn't pivot at that time in the food industry are noticing that now they are in their need to pivot. So the latest trend we are seeing in a lot of small businesses are maybe small bakeries that now have a line of a specific product that they only sell online. I'm noticing a lot of really definitely most of them have started to review prices and create new products. Products have to be reinvented because not all the food products come right in the delivery. So many of the companies also had to reinvent the products the way they were doing it to make sure they could deliver. I noticed that it's also about the competition, but it has changed before the pandemic and is now changing again. And is that, for instance, a lot of new food trucks are coming into the picture, which is a business that has a plus and minus. It's not that easy to do. It has a lot of regulations and limitations, but then you will find that there are many things that are a lot of players. Also, a lot of families that are starting cottage food from home. So that means that they prepare certain foods from home and they can sell them even though they cannot deliver through email. But it's important to know the rules and regulations and how you do it and what products you can do. So there are a lot of things that have changed. I think always changes like COVID, that it was what is called a trigger change that happens in a minute, generates the opportunity to reinvent your brand, your product, your services, and completely reimagine and take your business to the next level. Since the time is very limited here, I have asked Brianna to put a link that I prepared with all the links for you, so you can find more information about trends and the different regulations for cottage food, maybe for other types of like truck foods, restaurants, and some law and regulations.
Thank you, Adriana. And I'm gonna follow up with that, saying that resources is very, very important, and knowledge is power. So you don't have to be scholarly or anything like that, because at the end of the day, you could have all the degrees in the world. When you're in that seat, driving your business, this is the school of hard knocks and hard punches. So you're going to learn something and it's never going to be the same as written in a book. So I'm gonna go to Jocelyn. I think your part for people to understand that when you have a business, it is not just baking the cookies and making the sandwiches. It is about the bottom line. If it doesn't make money, it doesn't make sense. What advices would you have for these entrepreneurs, and when the foundation, how they understand the importance of setting up your QuickBooks and having a bookkeeper and making sure that the foundation financially is strong enough to sustain anything?
Absolutely, yes. So thank you, Chef Vicky. You're absolutely right. If it doesn't make money, it doesn't make sense. I mean, making money is a difference between it being a hobby and being a business, right? So we want to make sure that your business is profitable. I think one of the first things that I always see, especially new business owners, those who are starting kind of in early phases, is the first thing I have to say is separate your personal and your business expenses. That's number one. You need to have a separate account. You need to have, separate banking, separate tracking for those expenses, and really be diligent. I know it's very easy, especially if you're just starting out, to want to just loop everything in together, but it's really important that you separate those expenses. It's going to be important, I'm sure Adriana would also agree, as you go along the line to be able to show financial record and bookkeeping for that organization, or for your business, excuse me, as you go along. So then that way, when you are applying for certain things, applying for different loans, different opportunities, you've been tracking that, and you have a record of what you're keeping. So that's first and foremost, is doing that and actually using some sort of system. So while I do suggest that most entrepreneurs use an actual tool, a software, to manage their finances, but even if you're not there yet, using Excel. But the point is, find a way to make sure that you're understanding what is coming into your business, what is going out of your business. And then from there, for those of you who may be a little bit more advanced, you already have QuickBooks. The other thing I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs is really making sure that, and this is going to get a little accounting technical, but make sure that your chart of accounts looks good. And what that is basically making sure that you have the right types of categories, you understand the different income streams. So I think one of the things we're talking a lot about is our companies pivoting post COVID. As part of that pivot, right, is now that maybe you're getting online sales. Now you're getting, maybe Uber Eats sales. You want to classify that income differently, because you want to be able to see with the different lines, the different ways in which you are delivering your product and how it's profitable, how you can either make it more profitable, as Adriana mentioned, by changing the recipe or charging more for that particular item. But you want to be able to understand what parts of your business is most profitable. So I think those are a few tips without taking too much.
And also removing what's not selling. There's no point in keeping a menu item on the menu if it's not selling. And it is so very important to understand a chart of accounts. For example, if you have different types of products, I've had, when my bookkeeper sends me ask my accountant, or they sends me my pro forma, and I have to look at it, and I'm like, whoa, we didn't make that much money for this. This was consulting. So please move it around, because you could go in blindly and trust everybody, which is okay. It's good. But you need to also be literate in reading your profit and loss analysis and your balance sheet, because that's how people can have the opportunity to steal from you. And you hear these stories so many times, and sometimes there's nothing to steal, but it can happen. Yeah. So it is very important, because when it comes to taxes, when it comes to filing your taxes and doing your sales taxes, you can't mess with that stuff, because at the end of the day, you don't want to mess with Uncle Sam. So you want to make sure that everything is dotted and crossed. Thank you so much. So we're going to the next series of questions, which is basically for any entrepreneurs who are looking to start their own business. What kind of sound advice we could give, all of us can go around and give them, in order for them to fully understand what it is that they're getting into? And I'll start myself. I come in, anybody who walks through my doors, but I always have the conversation with them by telling them, you're going to get out of here with a full understanding of what it is that you're getting into. I'm passionate about the food industry, but you need to understand something. When you choose to be a caterer, for example, if you're doing catering for off-premise event, that's one type of business. If you're doing meal planning, that's one type of business. If you're doing a curbside, that's another type of business. You have to understand that everything requires your time and understanding on how to run each of these segments. If you choose to have a catering and then juice, then you're in a completely different business, but you're still in the food business. And each of those, while you could manage a catering company with a lower working capital or starting capital, when it comes to start a juice business, you may need a machine that's $3 million and you're a small business. So you have to have that rude awakening with yourself to say, okay, where am I financially and how much am I willing to undertake? And if you want to do a acidified sauce, that's great, versus a spice, which is a low-hanging fruit. You could repack that, versus acidified food that you have to send to a lab. And each of those recipes may cost you $1,500. So you have to be real with yourself and understand that you have to start somewhere. Another one I might add, if you have an empanada versus a vegetarian patty, you may want to start with a vegetarian patty, because I could get you signed up and licensed by the Department of Agriculture. But once you put more than 3% of meat in there, which is less than what you find in baby food, that's USDA, and you can no longer function in a commercial facility and you have to build your own. So you have to have that understanding and everything that you need to do and be real with yourself and get out of the honeymoon phase. And that's why I tell people, you're either going to like me or hate me, because I may crush your dream, but it's only to rebuild it the right way. So with that said, I'll go ahead with, I'm going to turn things around and go with Tasha with branding, and then we'll go with Paul, and then so on and so forth.
Okay, so so yes, definitely your brand is really an important part of your overall business. And where I see small businesses needing to work on the branding is when they just think the brand is just the logo, and that's basically it. And that's really so much more to a brand than just your logo. So a lot of small businesses think, well, I have my brand, I have my logo, I have my website, I have whatever else I have to support it. But really, the brand is about the products, the customer experience. And I try to let small businesses know that the customer experience is one of the most important parts of your overall branding. So if people are putting negative reviews online about your products and your services, or there's a lag or a gap in your customer service experience or something that can be improved upon, your customers are going to let you know about it. So when you're trying to think about your brand, start with what are you offering the customer and what is the customer's experience when they get to you and they're interacting with your product or service. What is happening there? So forget about the logo, that's great, that's wonderful. But really, when you think about branding, I want small business owners, especially in the food and beverage businesses, to know that really they need to concentrate on that customer experience and getting feedback from your customers, and really making sure that if there is an issue with a customer, an order, whatever it is, that you take that seriously and you do whatever it takes to fix it, because that's having a disgruntled customer is one of the things that can kill your brand, because they start building on it and it's like, okay, there's one negative review, all of a sudden there's 5 negative reviews, you're not answering the reviews, so you're really not minding your brand either. You're not really, engaging with these customers. And if they have a complaint, that's one of the things that I try to stress over and over to small business owners is address those complaints, whether it be online, whatever it is, address those complaints, because that is the foundation of your brand, that customer experience.
And Tasha, to add just a little bit more, I always tell people who walk in here, the name starts with the name.
Yes,
when you say A and B, you sound like someone who's selling tools, and if you're putting it next to food, it might be a problem. So how important it is that we have to step out of our egos in order to listen.
Yes.
And in order to be prosperous. So the name is everything.
Yeah. And so the name is very important. And what I try to tell small business owners is you need to make sure that your brand can stand on its own. So it can't be that without you, you have to ask yourself the question, without you, where would your brand be? So with Paul, for example, without Paul, could his business, his juice business stand on its own? Of course it could, because it's not called Paul's Drinks. It's not called, you know what I mean? Like a lot of times small business owners are like, well, my name has to be in it.
Yeah.
Or, you know, my mom's name has to, like somebody's name that I know has to be in my brand. And it's like, no, really, you need to think about your brand, the exit strategy with your brand. Because most of the time I tell small business owners, think about what you would do to sell this business. And so you need to run your business, prep it as though you're going to sell it in 5 to 10 years from now. Even if you do, even if you don't, you always have to think of that exit strategy. And making a name, having a name for your business that is basically to soothe your ego is not going to be good. And so take yourself out of the name, take yourself out of the name game and really focus on the product when you're thinking about the name for the business.
Thank you for elaborating on that. That's something that we go through a lot. Paul,
Yes.
your turn.
Yes.
So what would you give, what kind of advice would you give these entrepreneurs?
First off, I would say, now with the beauty of the internet, there are some really great forums out there. For example, I'll just make one out there called Dieline, and they talk about branding of products, especially in the CPG market or the consumer packaged good market, which is what I fall into, or find out how other restaurants, food trucks are designing themselves. And I'm not talking about bringing in great designers, but you know, I think you have to stand out from the rest of the field. On our experience, Express Juice, our first brand, we invested, it was probably one of our largest investments in total. We actually had a custom-made 12-ounce bottle made, which is in the like in a flask shape, looks like a hip flask. And we ended up launching that brand or that bottle, and it really stands out on a shelf. When we have 8 different bottles with different flavors lined up on a supermarket shelf, it commands a lot more real estate than another brand would. But we also grew that bottle and actually had the second version made from a plant-based biodegradable material which was developed here with a company here in Miami. So that gave us a lot of street cred that our bottle was not like everyone else's bottle. The end costs the same as everyone else's bottle, but we actually now own the trademark or the patent to that bottle. So it's nice to be able to build a brand around a bottle, just like Coca-Cola did. I'm not Coca-Cola, but it's nice to you know, have your own personal feel to it without having your name attached to it. And ironically enough, that bottle actually won an award in 2019 in London. It won a global beverage award. We beat Pepsi Cola in a packaging award, which is pretty cool for a little Miami brand. Not that I speak about those things, but I think branding is a massive thing. I think there's some really talented graphic designers here. I'm very big into outsourcing things as well. There's some great online apps out there that you can employ at honestly incredibly low costs to help you brand your product or design the look of your menu or the physical touch of your menu to make it stand out so you are different from everyone else.
Thank you. And that's the key. That's the key, Paul. Being different from everyone else. What makes you different? If I'm going to buy a bottle of juice, there's 1,000,001 of them. What makes you different? With that, I'm going to thank you so much, Paul. I'm going over to Adriana. One quick advice for everybody so that we could go to the Q&A.
So I will say very quickly, know your market. So know if you are selling just in your neighborhood or if you're selling somewhere else, who's the person that you're selling? Know the needs of that person. What is that they want? What style of food they want? Check your the competitors in that area so you really know what makes you different. And then definitely manage your business, know more about your business. And the final tip, I will say you're not alone. I'm very close in my heart to both StartUP FIU Food and SBDC, and both are amazing programs that are just available for you. And none of you are alone in this process. So it's just a matter of just reaching to us.
Thank you so much, Adriana. Last but not least, can you go ahead and give them a quick, I always go back to finances because that's like the heart of your business, right there.
Yeah, I'll keep it quick. You said half of it, right? Finances are the heart of your business. I think the other thing, I definitely just want to make sure that our attendees understand, and those who are starting a business, is that it's not as scary as you guys may think it is. Like, make finances fun. Think about the idea of understanding your finances to be, as opposed to, I remember listening to a podcast, as opposed to looking to your budget, looking to your finances to tell you what you can't do. Like, think about the idea of understanding your finances, understanding your numbers, so that you understand what you can do, how your business can grow, how you can become more profitable. So that's my one thing, and I'll
Thank you.
leave it at that.
Thank you so much. With that said, I'll end with: do your due diligence, take the emotion and ego out of it, organize your ideas, seek information, and create a plan and act on the plan. Those are my final words as far as the words of wisdom, if you will. I'm only 41, but I've been through hell and high water. So I could tell you this much. With that said, we'll go into the question and answer. The hour just went by very quick.
Mm-hmm. That's what happens when you have great panelists and a great moderator, right?
Oh,
So everybody, can we give like a virtual kind of like clap for our great panel, our great moderator? And Chef Vicky, you said you're only 41. I know we're also going to hound you to write your book because we know you know enough to write a book, so.
One more thing on my list.
Yeah. So let's get into the questions. The first question is from Irene. Irene, thank you for being on. She would. This is probably for you, Vicky. Was, can I get information for the shared kitchen? Whom to contact, rates, other use requirements, basically like buying questions. She has buying questions for you.
Okay, well, we could go ahead and send a link of our information, definitely, and we could get together off this panel to discuss more.
Okay.
Okay, now, thank you.
And then we have a second question. I'm a co-founder of a startup currently. How can we translate the research of the problem and the solution into a storyline? So maybe for Adriana, for Tasha.
Or Tasha. Tasha stepped out for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But Adriana.
Okay. Definitely. What I will do is, in the link that I sent, I will gladly send you like a value proposition formula, so you can work that pain and generate a gain and write a storyline. I'll make sure I put a note in the link that I put in Notion, so it can help you write the whole concept of the storyline.
Okay. And then we had an easy question for you, Joycelyn. What is the process to start working with Food FIU? So shameless plug for Food FIU.
Yes. So actually, I would like to actually defer that question to my my superior, Anna Etienne, who could tell you a lot more about the process of working with StartUP FIU.
All right, awesome. So as you can imagine, COVID has made things a little bit challenging, but we are launching an accelerator program this fall for small businesses that are looking to, and of course, SBDC is a part of that process, and so is Adriana. And so is Tasha. Pretty much everybody on here is a part of that process. And so we want to help small businesses structure their online business. So yes, if you are a caterer, if you are a food truck, if you are a restaurant, but you'd like to expand your portfolio as it relates to distributing your product, we're creating an accelerator program to help you do that. And so that's showing up this fall. We're going to have a summit in the middle of this month to discuss the various aspects of that. And so we want to make our resources free and accessible to everyone. I think prior to the pandemic, there was a process of helping you get into the FIU kitchen and doing the one-on-ones face-to-face. Brian and I, we both talked about how our consulting efforts quadrupled during the pandemic online. We were able to do a lot more online than we were, asking someone who lives, let's say in Broward, to meet us in Kendall, right? And so we're creating new programs and free resources, but that's taking some time and some change. And so we're going to start off with the summit that's happening in the middle of this month. And then we're going to roll out an online platform so you guys can have access to our resources. So the accelerator is coming. We're just in the middle of transitioning everything that we do in a way that's accessible to you online. And next stages is to bring some of our programs to your neighborhoods. And so definitely we have our FIU presence, but we learned in 2020, and we want to take some of our resources to your neighborhoods. And that also includes our support of Chef Vicky's Kitchen as well.
Thanks, Anna. And then Matthew just said he's also been inquiring about the startup kitchens. So I think Chef Vicky, you putting the information in there was helpful. Let's see what else we got. He said, if you've had a business model for 6 years that provided a service to your base, how do you pivot to products? So maybe for Paul or for Adriana. Pivot.
Sorry, Brian, what was the question again?
If you've had a business model for 6 years that provided a service to your customer base, how do you pivot to products? So the famous COVID word pivot.
Pivot, yeah. Well, look, for example, we had to pivot last year. We are predominantly B2B. And then obviously when hotels and cruise lines halted, we quickly pivoted and became B2C. We did smaller packages, smaller amounts, home deliveries, which was great. We actually got a lot of kudos from customers knowing that they could still get those products where they needed them. And we actually built some really good rapport with customers from doing that. We're now trying to pull away from that because we don't want our accounts, whether they're supermarkets, us undercutting them with going straight to customers.
Mm-hmm.
Can I add something?
Yeah, I know I hear you use the term pivot all the time. So
yeah, since you say specifically that you're pivoting from service to a product, I think, and I don't know exactly what service you were doing, but I would look on your current clients that you have. You have been in business for 6 years. So probably you have already a good base of clients. I would check what are the needs of those clients, and I will find maybe a product that I could serve for those clients. Because the most difficult part is to get the clients, so they recognize you. They already know you, your service. So those should be that should be your lowest hanging fruit. Find what are the needs that they have in products and try to offer a product for them.
that's smart. And then Anna, Irene was asking if she can get your contact information.
Hi, Irene. Our startup information, it's so much easier to do it through startup because, as you can imagine, I'm constantly in meetings. But I just asked my team to add our startup information so you guys could meet with us as well. Our one-on-one activities, we receive the support of SBDC. Mm-hmm. Startup, we create accelerator programs and workshops for you. And so I just text my team to put our information on there so you guys can sign up for all of our activities. So workshops that are specific to your product, workshops that are specific to your needs. And also, like, some of our panelists that are on here also provide workshops specific to where you are as a business. And so we did a lot of that last year. And we want to expand that this year. And so, yeah, so they're gonna be more responsible than I am and add the email address and contact information in the chat.
Yeah, and Irene, they did put in the chat. So they're lighting up the chat right now. And this might be a good question for Tasha. What reading or podcast material do you recommend to improve a business mindset? Kind of like, what are some podcasts and readings that you would recommend?
Well, I would, because I'm not a huge podcast listener, I probably should be, but there are some really good, if you go to Amazon and just type in branding into the search bar, there's some great podcasts and books that will come up that you can use, and they'll kind of give you a roadmap. A lot of small business owners don't have a lot of time to be reading branding books, but if you type that into Amazon, you'll see the latest ones that are out there. And that's how I would recommend you getting your reading material. And then as for the podcast, I know if you just, whatever you use to listen to your podcast, like Spotify or whatever, if you put in branding or marketing, it'll bring up all of the, the latest branding and marketing podcasts that are out there.
Yeah. Any of the other panelists, one good podcast to kind of cover the podcast side? Paul, you got something?
No, there's in the CPG market, there's a forum called BevNet and Nosh. They are fantastic, cover all spectrums of the food sector, everything from snacks and consumables. Really great. They have a podcast and they have web forums.
Mm-hmm. Nice. And Chef Vicky, you had something too?
I hear my husband listens to Gary Vee. I just don't like him cursing all day, but he's a good one with marketing, and he does follow a lot of the stuff that he says to do too. But I was going to say, based on that last question we had with the pivoting, don't pivot just to pivot. You have to know your market, and you have to often go with what's not available. The market is saturated, and especially with food. Try to go a little bit left or right to something that you see that's missing. Visit the supermarkets and understand what your clients are looking for. Don't just pivot just to pivot.
Yeah, and I do see that Adriana posted a couple of podcasts.
Yes, I would really recommend at least listen to Marketplace, even if it's on Fridays. That is the summary. Please understand what is going in the market. And that's a good place to do it. If you are really busy, the Market Minute, it will give you in a minute, in the morning, in the midday, and the evening, what is happening in the economy and everything. So that's very easy. And Akimbo from Seth Godin, he talks a lot about branding, packaging, storytelling. It's really engaging.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. So that's more than one. That's a couple good ones. And then we have one final question from Tina. That was, what components should be considered when you're pricing your products to ensure a profit? So very fundamental. Back to
You
the
want to go, Chef Vicky? I was gonna.
Okay, so what component? You have to understand your raw material, your food, your overhead, including yourself, and basically your overhead. You have to understand food costs formulation in order to price your food correctly. And don't do one of those where, oh, this person is charging $16. Let me charge $15, because that person may have buying power and you don't, because you're just starting. So you need to understand food costs. A simple spreadsheet, food, how much did it cost you, your overhead, and then you multiply. It's usually a third. If your food costs cost you 500, then if you don't have time to do it with the details, then you multiply by 3 or 4 to ensure that you make a profit.
And I would just add to that, because we've done quite a bit of that with our startup food entrepreneurs. So in terms of, in addition to what Chef Vicky provided, which is definitely make sure that you understand your personal cost, any cost of any staff that you're using to help you produce that material. Basically, you want to understand your full cost of goods sold, right? Like, which means both the raw materials, any packaging costs that you have, labeling costs, any delivery for those who are pivoting to online, because that's a cost of delivering your product to those individuals. And you want to make sure that you are profitable by the time you consider the price of that product and all the costs that go into selling, producing and selling that product. And just as a basic point of reference, you want to be somewhere at minimum 50% or higher when it comes to your profitability, because that's just at cost of goods sold. Once you start adding in all your other administrative costs from branding, so on and so forth, the other things that you need to be mindful of, you want to make sure that you are at a good profitability starting point with your cost of goods sold.
Especially for those who are doing Uber, you need to make sure that on your website, you don't have one price. And then on Uber and DoorDash, there's another price. Stay with one price across. And if you have to add a little bit to really get what you need to get for that product, then you need to calculate it as such, because that 30% is a lot on both ends that these guys are doing it. And then add it to your product, because you have to make the money. Otherwise, it comes out of your pocket. And negotiate with them, negotiate with Uber and DoorDash, negotiate that rate down.
Just to final, because I know we're over, but reach out to your local municipalities, to your cities. Most of your cities has an economic and development department, and they have resources for you. Even though, let's say you are at home and you're functioning under the cottage law to start your business, they have resources for you. I do know of a few cities that take on the cost of that 30%, or we'll split it for you, right? So there were a lot of initiatives that happened during the pandemic. And so get involved in your local community, reach out to your local economic development departments, and find out what's available for you. There are resources that are out there to help you during your startup phase. And so that would be my advice.
Cool. Some really strong, and we're ending with finance, right? We're ending with finance and pricing, so that's a good way to start and end. I just want to take a second to thank Anna and her team for helping us pull this together, our really great panels, and our rock star moderator on this. As Brianna mentioned in the chat, we will have a video of this available. There's no presentation, there's no slides, because you got to hear real great experiences. And we would encourage you guys, we do have additional webinars coming up with Food FIU in July and in August. So if you like this one, we got a couple more coming up. So just everybody have a great rest of the week. And just thanks again to our panelists and to you guys for attending.
It was nice meeting everyone.
Take care.
Thank you.
Take care.